Velthar Prime had never been attacked in over 2,000 years of empire. The homeworld of the Velthari sat at the center of a defensive network that spanned 12 star systems. Automated defense platforms, quantum mines, and the most advanced sensor arrays in the galaxy protected the heart of their civilization. Supreme Commander Thexvar stood in the Supreme Command Center, watching the approaching storm on his tactical displays. The human fleet was coming, and for the first time in his life he felt something his species had forgotten. Fear. "Status report," he demanded. "All outer defenses are active," reported his aide. 14,000 automated defense platforms, quantum disruption fields covering all approach vectors, and our entire home fleet standing ready. "How many ships are they bringing?" Thexvar asked. "Unknown, sir. Our long-range sensors detect nothing, but intelligence reports suggest they have at least 300 vessels." Thexvar nodded grimly. 300 ships against the most defended system in the galaxy. The humans were either desperate or completely insane. He had no idea he was about to face both. In the command center of the human flagship Retribution, Admiral Kyung-ho reviewed the final attack plans with his senior staff. Around them, the Ghost Fleet held position just outside the Velthar system, invisible to enemy sensors. "The quantum virus is ready?" he asked Engineer So-young. "Ready and tested," she replied. "Once we establish connection with their central network, the virus will propagate through every quantum-linked system in their empire. Complete technological collapse within 6 hours." Dr. Wu Jin added his own report. "Intelligence confirms that 90% of Velthari infrastructure is dependent on the quantum network. When it fails, their entire civilization will revert to pre-industrial technology levels." President Mi Kyung, now aboard the Retribution for the final battle, looked at the tactical display showing Velthar Prime and its massive defensive network. "Civilian casualties?" she asked. Commander Hyun-soo had prepared for this question. "Minimal direct casualties. The virus targets technology, not biology. However, the collapse of their infrastructure will likely cause significant indirect casualties as life support systems fail. The same kind of casualties they inflicted on 47 other species," General Tae-hyun pointed out. "The difference is we're giving them a chance to survive." Captain Jin-woo spoke from his position at the fleet communications station. "Admiral, all ghost ships report ready. Liberation forces on enslaved worlds are standing by for coordinated uprising." Kyung-ho looked around at the assembled leadership of humanity. These people had watched their homeworld burn, their civilization scattered to the stars. Now they commanded the most advanced fleet in the galaxy, preparing to end an empire that had ruled through terror for millennia. "Begin the attack," he ordered. The Battle of Velthar Prime began with something the defenders had never seen. Reality itself seemed to tear open as human ships materialized throughout their defensive network. "Impossible," shouted Fleet Admiral Velthak from his command ship. "No vessels penetrated our perimeter." "Sir, they didn't penetrate the perimeter," his tactical officer replied in a shaking voice. "They materialized inside it. Quantum phase technology beyond anything in our databases." The human strategy was unlike anything in Velthari military history. Instead of fighting their way through the defensive network, the ghost ships simply ignored it, existing in quantum superposition until they reached their targets. Defense platforms that had protected the system for centuries found themselves under attack from enemies that appeared inside their shields. Quantum mines detonated harmlessly as human ships phased in and out of normal space-time. But the most terrifying aspect wasn't the technology, it was the precision. Captain Jin-woo led a strike team directly toward the planetary quantum network hub. His ship, Shadow of Earth, moved through the defensive fire like it wasn't there, its quantum phase shields rendering most weapons useless. "Target the network nodes, not the defensive platforms," he ordered his weapons officer. "We want to disable their command structure. Not waste time on automated defenses." Around Velthar Prime, similar scenes played out as human ships struck with surgical precision at critical infrastructure points. Communication arrays went silent. Command networks collapsed. The carefully coordinated defensive system began to fall apart as its controlling intelligence was systematically dismantled. On the planet's surface, War Marshal Kethmore watched his defensive network crumble on real-time displays. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Our technology is superior to anything these primitives could have developed." Dr. Hyojin, Monitoring Velthari communications from the Retribution would have found his statement amusing if the situation weren't so serious. The Velthari had never learned to innovate because they had never needed to. For 2,000 years, they had simply taken technology from conquered species and used it unchanged. Humanity had taken that same technology and made it better. Network access point located, reported Dr. Wu Jin from his station aboard Jin Wu's ship. I can establish connection to their central quantum hub. Do it, Jin Wu ordered. The quantum virus that So Young had designed was elegant in its simplicity. It didn't destroy the Velthari network through brute force. Instead, it convinced the network to destroy itself. Every quantum-linked device in the Velthari Empire received the same simple command: execute termination protocol, and because the virus carried the proper authorization codes that Dr. Wu Jin had extracted from captured Velthari databases, every device obeyed. On Velthar Prime, the lights went out. Across the Empire, Velthari ships lost power and began drifting helplessly in space. Weapon systems shut down permanently. Life support systems failed. Communication networks went silent. In space platforms and planetary installations, automated systems turned on their creators. Defense networks that had protected Velthari worlds for centuries began targeting Velthari ships. Supreme Commander Thexvar watched his empire die in real time. All ships report total system failure, his aide said, his voice barely a whisper. The fleet is dead in space. Planetary defenses are offline. Even emergency backup systems are not responding. Through the command center's windows, Thexvar could see human ships materializing in the skies above his capital city. They moved with the confidence of victors, no longer needing to hide. Send surrender terms, he ordered. Sir, communications are down. The humans destroyed our entire network. A new voice spoke from the shadows of the command center. Captain Dongwu stepped into the light, having materialized through quantum phase technology directly into the most secure building on the planet. Supreme Commander Thexvar, he said in perfect Velthari, I bring a message from humanity. You offer terms? Thexvar asked desperately. We offer nothing, Dongwu replied. You had your chance for terms 30 days after first contact. You chose war. You chose genocide. You chose to threaten the complete annihilation of our species. He gestured toward the darkened city outside. This is your answer. Thexvar looked around his dead command center, at the screens showing his collapsed empire, at the human who had appeared like a ghost to deliver his civilization's death sentence. What do you want? He asked. What you promised us, Dongwu said simply. Complete annihilation. Not of your people. We're not genocidal murderers like you, but of your empire, your military, your ability to ever threaten another species again. Outside, more human ships appeared in the sky, but these weren't warships. They were transports and medical vessels. Evacuation ships are standing by for civilian populations, Dongwu continued. Your people will be relocated to reservation worlds where they can live peaceful lives under human oversight. Your technology will be destroyed. Your weapons will be scrapped. Your records of conquered species will be given to the survivors so they can rebuild their own civilizations. And us? The leadership? Thexvar asked. Dongwu's expression hardened. You will stand trial for genocide before representatives of every species you murdered. Justice will be decided by your victims. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on every Velthari world. The empire that had ruled through fear for 2 millennia collapsed in a single day. On the former slave world of Zephyr 7, Elder Zeph Kalen stood in the ruins of the Velthari garrison and watched human ships land carrying supplies and medical aid. 300 years, he said to General Tae Hyun as the human commander emerged from the transport. 300 years we waited for this day. I'm sorry it took so long, Tae Hyun replied. We only learned about you 6 months ago. 6 months? Zeph Kalen asked in amazement. You destroyed an empire that ruled for 2,000 years in 6 months? We had motivation, Tae Hyun said simply. As the liberation ships spread across the galaxy, carrying freedom to species that had forgotten what it meant, a final message went out on all frequencies. President Mi Kyung spoke to the galaxy from the bridge of the Retribution, with the dead hulk of the Velthari homeworld fleet floating in the background. To all species formerly enslaved by the Velthari Empire, you are free. To all species that may one day threaten the freedom of others, remember this day. Remember that tyrants fall, that empires built on suffering always collapse and that there are those in this galaxy. The Velthari Empire was learning the difference between conquest and war. Supreme Commander Thexvar stood before the High Council, his usual confidence replaced by something the other commanders had never seen before: uncertainty. "The attacks are systematic," he reported to the assembled leaders of the Empire. "Not random raids or desperate revenge strikes. This enemy has a plan." High Counselor Velkoth, eldest of the ruling caste, studied the tactical displays. "Show me the pattern." The holographic map of Velthari space flickered to life, showing hundreds of star systems under Empire control. Red markers appeared wherever attacks had occurred, and the pattern was clear: a spiral moving inward toward the Empire's core worlds. "They're not trying to hold territory," Thexvar explained. "They attack, destroy our infrastructure, liberate the slaves, and vanish. But each attack is closer to our home systems." "Impossible," declared War Marshal Kethmore. "No species has ever challenged the Empire's core. Our defensive networks have protected these systems for over 1,000 years." In the depths of space near the Vale Nebula, Captain Jinwoo reviewed intelligence reports aboard his flagship. Around him, the Ghost Fleet had grown to over 200 vessels, each one a hybrid of human ingenuity and captured Velthari technology. "Target analysis complete," reported Dr. Hai Jin from her science station. "The Velthari military base at Korath 5 is their primary weapons development facility. Destroying it would set back their war efforts by years." Admiral Kyung-ho studied the data. "The attack would be their most ambitious yet, striking deep into Velthari core territory." "What about civilian casualties?" he asked. "The facility is isolated," Commander Hyun-soo replied. "No slave populations, just military personnel and automated systems. It's a legitimate military target." Engineer So-young looked up from her quantum analysis station. "Sir, I'm detecting something unusual about their defensive network." "The quantum entanglement field around Korath 5 is different from other facilities." "Different how?" Kyung-ho asked. "It's older, more complex. I think this might be one of their original technology development sites. If we could capture their research data instead of just destroying it." Dr. Woo Jin immediately understood the implications. "We could learn how their entire network was built. Find the root commands, the base protocols. With that knowledge, we could potentially shut down their entire empire at once." President Mi-kyung, attending the briefing via quantum communication from her mobile command ship, made the decision. "Change of mission. This is now a capture operation. Get me that research data." The attack on Korath 5 began 3 days later. The Velthari defenders detected nothing until ghost ships started materializing inside their defensive perimeter. The quantum phase technology had evolved beyond simple invisibility. Human ships could now exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, appearing wherever they needed to be. "Impossible," shouted Base Commander Velnash as alarms screamed throughout the facility. "Our sensors show no incoming ships." His aide pointed at the tactical display in horror. "Sir, they're already here." Enemy vessels appearing throughout the base complex. What followed wasn't a battle but a systematic dismantling. The humans had learned to use Velthari technology better than the Velthari themselves. Quantum disruptors shut down defensive systems. Phase cannons cut through armor that had protected the Empire for centuries. But most disturbing of all was the precision. Where other enemies fought with desperation or rage, these attackers moved with cold, calculated efficiency. Captain Jin Woo led the boarding party into the research complex personally. His team moved through corridors filled with dead Velthari technology, their quantum-enhanced armor allowing them to exist partially out of phase with normal matter. "Resistance is minimal," reported Sergeant Taman over the communications channel. "Most of their weapons can't even target us properly." "Remember, we're here for information, not destruction," Jin Woo reminded his team. "Secure the central databases." In the main research laboratory, Dr. Hai Jin made a discovery that changed everything. "Jin Woo, you need to see this," she called out, her voice filled with disgust and horror. The laboratory contained rows of containment units, each one holding biological samples. But these weren't just any samples. They were genetic material from every species the Velthari had ever conquered. "They're building biological weapons," Yijin said, analyzing the data flows. "Viruses designed to target specific genetic markers. They can literally create plagues that only kill certain species." Dr. Woo Jin, working at the central computer system, found something even worse. "They're not just planning to use these weapons. They already have. Look at this. The files he had accessed showed the truth about Velthari conquests. Species that had supposedly died fighting the Empire had actually been killed by engineered diseases. The Velthari would introduce biological weapons, wait for the population to weaken, then arrive as liberators to enslave the survivors. How many? Jin Wu asked quietly. 47 species, Wu Jin replied, just like they said. But they didn't die in battle. They were murdered by plague. The implications were staggering. The Velthari Empire wasn't just built on conquest, it was built on genocide. Download everything, Jin Wu ordered. Every file, every research note, every biological sample. The galaxy needs to know the truth. As his team worked, Jin Wu activated his communication system and sent a priority message to Admiral Kyung Ho. Sir, recommend immediate authorization of Protocol Nemesis. What we've found here changes everything. General Tae Hyun, coordinating liberation efforts on dozens of worlds, received the transmission at his mobile command base. Protocol Nemesis had been theoretical until now. A plan for the complete destruction of Velthari civilization. Are you certain? He asked Jin Wu. General, they're not conquerors. They're genocidal killers who use biological weapons to commit mass murder. Every species they've claimed to defeat in battle was actually exterminated by engineered plague. President Mi Kyung made the decision that would define humanity's war. Protocol Nemesis is authorized, she announced to all human forces. The Velthari Empire will be completely eradicated. No compromise, no surrender, no mercy. Engineer So Young, working with the captured Velthari research data, made the breakthrough that would make Protocol Nemesis possible. I've found it, she announced during an emergency council meeting, the master control system for their entire quantum network. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of technology in their empire is connected to a central core on their homeworld. Can we access it? Asked Dr. Wu Jin. Better, So Young said with a grim smile. I can build a virus that will travel through their quantum network and destroy everything connected to it. Not just shut it down, actually destroy it. Their ships will tear themselves apart. Their weapons will explode. Their entire technological civilization will collapse in hours. Admiral Kyung Ho looked at the technical specifications. What do you need? Access to their homeworld's quantum network. Just one connection, and the virus will spread everywhere instantly. Then we take their homeworld, Kyung Ho said simply. Across Velthari space, the war intensified beyond anything the Empire had ever faced. Human forces struck with increasing boldness, each attack bringing them closer to the core systems. On Velthar Prime, Supreme Commander Thexvar received reports that filled him with growing dread. 15 core systems under attack, his aide reported. The humans are moving toward the homeworld. How many ships do they have? Thexvar demanded. Unknown, sir. Our sensors can't track them properly. They appear and disappear at will. For the first time in Velthari history, the Empire was fighting an enemy it couldn't see, couldn't predict, and couldn't defeat. But the worst was yet to come. Elder Zeph Kalen, leading the liberated Zephyrian forces, sent a message that reached every enslaved species in the galaxy. The humans have given us proof that the Velthari are not invincible. They are genocidal murderers who have hidden their crimes for 2,000 years, but their time is ending. Rise up, fight! Freedom is possible. On 100 worlds, slave populations that had lived in despair for centuries suddenly found hope. The Velthari Empire, built on fear and the belief that resistance was impossible, began to crack from within, and in the darkness between stars, humanity's ghost fleet prepared for the final assault on Velthar Prime. The prey had become the predator. The hunt was almost over. 6 months after Earth's fall, the galaxy believed humanity was extinct. Supreme Commander Thexvar stood in his command chamber aboard the flagship, reviewing reports from across Velthari space. The conquest of Earth had taken longer than expected, but eventually, the stubborn humans had been ground down. The survivors now worked in labor camps just like all the other conquered species. The Earth sector is fully pacified, reported his aide. Resistance ended 3 months ago. We can begin full resource extraction. Good, Thexvar said. What of our next target? The Altarian system shows promise. 3 planets with developed civilizations. Our scouts estimate conquest within 2 months. Thexvar nodded. The Velthari machine rolled on, as it had for 2 millennia. Earth had been more troublesome than most, but in the end, They had fallen like all the others. He had no idea that his empire was already dying. In the darkness between Jupiter and Saturn, hidden in the shadow of a mining asteroid, engineer So Young put the finishing touches on humanity's first ghost ship. The vessel looked nothing like the old Earth ships. Where human technology had once been bulky and obvious, this ship seemed to barely exist. Its hull shifted and wavered, as if it couldn't decide whether it was solid or energy. "Quantum phase shifting is stable," reported Dr. Wu Jin from the engineering station. "We're existing in a state of superposition. To their sensors, we're just cosmic background radiation." Captain Jin Wu, former pilot of an Earth defense corvette, ran his hands over the alien-human hybrid controls. "How many more ships do we have hidden out here?" 17 completed, 30 more under construction," So Young replied. "Every asteroid mining station, every hidden outpost that survived the invasion has been converted to a shipyard." Admiral Kyung Ho watched the construction from the command deck of the hidden facility. What had started as desperate scavenging had become something unprecedented. A fleet built not to defend but to hunt. "The quantum disruptor weapons are ready?" he asked. "Better than ready," Dr. Wu Jin said with grim satisfaction. "We've improved on their own technology. Our disruptors don't just shut down their systems, they corrupt them. Any ship we hit will spread the corruption to other vessels in their network." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. The Velthari Empire's greatest strength, their interconnected quantum network, would become their greatest weakness. General Tai Hyun emerged from a communication booth, his face bearing news from across the galaxy. "We've made contact with the Zephyrian resistance," he announced. "They're still fighting after 300 years of slavery. And the Kethran survivors on the Outer Rim worlds are ready to rise up when we give the signal." Dr. Hyjin looked up from her xenobiology studies. "The Velthari have made the same mistake with every species they've conquered. They think breaking a planet means breaking a people. They've never had to deal with a distributed resistance." President Mi Kyung, now leading humanity's government in exile from a mobile command ship, studied the tactical displays. Earth was gone, its surface still scarred from the invasion. But humanity lived on in the dark spaces between worlds, growing stronger with each passing day. "How many Velthari supply convoys are currently in transit?" she asked. Commander Hun Su, now leading special operations, consulted her intelligence reports. 43 major convoys carrying supplies and slaves between conquered worlds. They're completely undefended. Who would dare attack the Velthari Empire? "We would," Mi Kyung said simply. The first strike came without warning. The Velthari supply convoy Korthek was traveling between the slave worlds of former Zephyrian space, when reality seemed to tear open around them. Ghost ships materialized from nowhere, their quantum disruptor weapons already firing. Captain Jin Woo watched from his ship's bridge as the alien vessels tried to respond. Their weapons powered up, their engines fired, their communication arrays activated, and then everything simply stopped working. "Quantum corruption spreading through their network," reported his weapons officer. "All enemy vessels are dead in space." The Velthari crew found themselves trapped in ships that no longer responded to their commands. Life support failed. Artificial gravity cut out. Emergency systems refused to activate, but the humans weren't there to capture prisoners. "Send the message," Jinwoo ordered. A single transmission went out on all Velthari frequencies, using their own communication protocols. The message was simple, delivered in perfect Velthari. "Earth remembers." Then the ghost ships vanished back into quantum space, leaving only drifting hulks and a mystery that would soon spread terror through the Empire. The attacks escalated quickly. Patrol ships vanished without a trace. Supply lines were cut with surgical precision. Velthari commanders found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't track, couldn't understand. War Marshal Kethmore stood in his command center, staring at reports that made no sense. 17 convoys destroyed in the last month, his aide reported. No survivors, no witnesses, no evidence except dead ships drifting in space. Pirates? Kethmore suggested, though he knew it was impossible. Rebellious slaves? "Sir, the attack patterns are too sophisticated. Whoever is doing this has access to advanced quantum technology. Technology that matches our own capabilities." Kethmore felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not for his own life, but for the Empire itself. Could it be the humans? He asked quietly. His aide looked shocked. Impossible, sir. We confirmed the destruction of their homeworld. Their species was eliminated, but across Velthari space, the impossible was happening. On the slave world of Zephyr 7, overseer units reported mysterious equipment failures. Mining robots stopped working. Communication arrays went silent. Security systems shut down without explanation. In the confusion, something unprecedented happened. The slaves fought back. Elder Zeph Kalen, survivor of his people's conquest 3 centuries ago, stood in the ruins of a Velthari garrison and couldn't believe what he was seeing. Dead alien guards, their weapons scattered on the ground, their quantum armor nothing but inert metal. How? He asked Captain Dongwu, who had emerged from the shadows with his team of human operatives. Quantum disruption technology, Dongwu explained. We learned it from studying their own systems. Every piece of Velthari equipment is connected to their central network. Disrupt the network and everything stops working. You're human, Zeph Kalen said in amazement, but your world was destroyed. We saw the reports. Our world was destroyed, Dongwu agreed. Our people were scattered. Our cities were burned. But humanity didn't die. We learned. We adapted. We became something new. The old Zephyrian looked at the young human, seeing something in his eyes that had been missing from the galaxy for too long. Hope. What do you need from us? He asked. Everything you know about Velthari weaknesses. Every detail about their technology, their tactics, their history. And when the time comes, we need you to fight. We've been fighting for 300 years, Zeph Kalen said, but fighting without hope is just dying slowly. You've given us something we thought was lost forever. He looked around at his people who were already organizing themselves, preparing for a real rebellion for the first time in centuries. What is it you've given us? He asked. Dongwu smiled, and it was a smile that promised the end of empires. We've given you the knowledge that tyrants can die. Across the galaxy, on 100 different worlds, the message was spreading. The Velthari Empire, which had seemed invincible for 2,000 years, could be hurt, could be defeated, could be destroyed. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, humanity's ghost fleet grew larger every day. Preparing for the reckoning that was coming, the Velthari had declared war on Earth. Now they would learn what war truly meant. The Velthari arrived exactly 30 days later, just as they had promised. War Marshal Kethmore commanded the invasion fleet from his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on his screens. The blue and green world looked peaceful, almost innocent. Soon it would be black and red, like all the others that had dared to refuse Velthari rule. Begin orbital bombardment, he ordered. Target all major cities and military installations. Leave the rural areas intact for now. We'll need somewhere to build the slave camps. Earth's orbital defense stations opened fire first, their energy beams striking the alien ships. For a moment, hope flickered as several Velthari vessels took damage. Then the aliens fired back. The defense stations vanished in balls of white-hot plasma. Space debris that had once been humanity's greatest weapons rained down on the planet below. In the underground command center beneath Mount McKinley, General Tae-hyun watched his carefully planned defenses crumble in minutes. All orbital assets destroyed, reported his aide. Enemy fleet moving to bombardment positions. What about the surface-to-space missiles? Tae-hyun asked. Fired everything we had. We damaged maybe 20 of their ships. They have over 800. The first plasma blast hit New York City at exactly noon local time. The metropolis that had stood for centuries disappeared in seconds, leaving only a glowing crater where millions of people had lived and worked. London fell next, then Tokyo, then Moscow. One by one, Earth's greatest cities became funeral pyres. President Mi Kyung stood in the command bunker, watching the destruction on satellite feeds that kept cutting out as more communication arrays were destroyed. How many casualties? She asked quietly. Over 50 million in the first hour, came the reply. The bombardment is continuing. But even as Earth burned above them, humanity was learning. Engineer So Young worked frantically in the bunker's technical section, studying debris from the destroyed orbital stations. Mixed in with human wreckage were pieces of alien technology, blown off Velthari ships by the defense station weapons. Their hull material is some kind of crystalline metal, she told Dr. Wu Jin as they examined the fragments. But look at this energy signature. It's quantum-based, just like our experimental drives. Dr. Wu Jin ran the samples through every test he could think of. So Young, this is incredible. Their entire technology base uses quantum entanglement. Every ship, every weapon, every system is connected back to a central network. What does that mean? Asked Dr. Hyojin, who had been analyzing alien communications. It means they have a weakness, Woojin said. Quantum entanglement can be disrupted. If we could find the right frequency, we could shut down their entire fleet. Above ground, the bombardment continued. But not all of Earth's defenders had given up. Commander Hyun-soo led her unit through the ruins of what had been Chicago. The aliens had landed ground forces to secure strategic locations, but they clearly expected broken, terrified humans instead. They found something they had never encountered before. Target the joints in their armor, Hyun-soo whispered to her team as they prepared to ambush an alien patrol. Heejin's analysis shows that's where they're weakest. The Velthari soldiers walked into the trap expecting easy victory. Most conquered species collapsed psychologically after orbital bombardment. They became docile, ready for slavery. Humans became angry. The ambush was swift and brutal. Human weapons, designed for human enemies, proved surprisingly effective against alien armor when aimed at the right spots. More importantly, every dead alien meant more technology to study. Similar scenes played out across the planet. In the rubble of Berlin, Captain Dongwu led intelligence teams in capturing alien communication equipment. In the Australian outback, Major Jinwoo used guerrilla tactics to harry alien supply lines. The Velthari had expected conquest. Instead, they found themselves fighting a grinding war against an enemy that refused to break. This is taking too long, Kethmore complained to his staff. The Zephyrians surrendered after we destroyed their capital. The Kethrans gave up when we killed half their population. Why do these humans keep fighting? His aide, a younger Velthari officer, looked at the casualty reports. Sir, we've lost over 2,000 ground troops. That's more than we lost conquering the last 5 species combined. Then we'll increase the bombardment, Kethmore decided. Burn everything. If they won't surrender, we'll just take the survivors from the ashes. But deep underground, humanity's real work was beginning. So Young had teams of engineers working around the clock, reverse engineering every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on. The quantum entanglement networks were incredibly complex, but human scientists had been studying quantum mechanics for decades. I think I've found something, Dr. Woojin announced during one of their emergency meetings. Their quantum network isn't just for communication. It's how they control everything. Their ships, their weapons, even their life support systems. Can we disrupt it? President Mi-kyung asked. Despite the destruction above, she remained in the bunker, coordinating the resistance. Maybe, Woojin said, but we'd need to get close to one of their ships. Really close. I can get you close, Admiral Kyung-ho said from orbit. His ship had survived the initial attack by hiding in the asteroid belt, and he'd been running guerrilla strikes against isolated alien vessels. That night, while Velthari forces thought they were hunting broken human survivors, the Defiant slipped close to a damaged alien cruiser. A small team led by So Young spacewalked across the void, carrying experimental quantum disruptors. What they found inside the alien ship changed everything. The entire vessel is run by artificial intelligence, So Young reported. But it's not like our AI, it's like the ship is part of a giant brain. Every Velthari ship is just one neuron in a massive network. Dr. Heejin made an even more disturbing discovery. The biological analysis of the crew shows they're not just one species. The Velthari Empire uses genetic modification to create specialized castes. Workers, soldiers, commanders, they're all genetically engineered for specific roles. That explains their efficiency, General Taehyun said. But it also means they've forgotten how to adapt. They do the same thing every time because it's worked for 2,000 years. President Mi-kyung looked at the data, at the reports of continued resistance across the planet, at the growing pile of captured alien technology. How long do we have before they decide to just sterilize the planet? She asked. Based on their previous conquest, maybe 2 more weeks, Dongwu replied. If we don't surrender by then, they'll probably just kill everyone and move on. Then we have 2 weeks to do something they've never seen before, Mi-kyung said. She stood up, looking at the assembled leaders of humanity's resistance. Outside, Earth burned under alien guns. Cities lay in ruins. Millions were dead or captured. But in this buried room surrounded by the greatest minds humanity had ever produced, something new was being born. They think they know us, she said. They think we're just another species to be conquered or destroyed. They're wrong. She looked at each person in the room. The engineer who was unlocking alien secrets, the scientist who had found their weakness, the general who was making them bleed for every inch of ground, the admiral who still fought in the darkness of space. We're not going to surrender. We're not going to die quietly. We're going to do something the Velthari Empire has never seen before. What's that? Asked So Young. Meek Young smiled, and for the first time since the invasion began, it was not a sad smile. We're going to win. Admiral Kyung Ho stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the stars bend and twist as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. After 300 years of dreaming, humanity had finally reached another star system. The crew held their breath as sensors swept the empty space around them. "Admiral, we're picking up something," called out Lieutenant Haijin from her station. "Multiple ships, very large. They're coming toward us." Kyung Ho felt his heart race. First contact with alien life. He had dreamed of this moment since he was a child. Put them on screen when they get close enough. The alien ships were massive, easily 10 times the size of the Defiance. They moved with purpose, surrounding the human vessel in a perfect formation. The ships were dark metal with sharp edges that seemed to cut through space itself. "They're sending a message," reported Communications Officer Dong Wu. It's in perfect English, sir." "How is that possible?" Kyung Ho asked, but he already feared the answer. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that made the bridge crew step back in fear. It was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like old leather. Its eyes were completely black, and when it spoke, rows of sharp teeth showed in its mouth. "Humans of Earth," the creature said in a voice like grinding metal. "I am Supreme Commander Thexvar of the Velthari Empire. We have watched your pathetic world for some time. We know your languages, your weaknesses, your fears." Kyung Ho stepped forward, trying to keep his voice steady. "I am Admiral Kyung Ho of the United Earth ship Defiance. We come in peace, seeking friendship between our peoples." Thexvar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace? Friendship? You misunderstand your situation, human. The Velthari Empire has ruled this galaxy for over 2,000 years. We have conquered 47 different species. Some submitted willingly, others did not." The alien commander leaned forward, its black eyes reflecting the bridge lights. "Your world will submit to Velthari rule. You will surrender 90% of your population to serve as workers in our mines and factories. You will give us all your technology and scientific knowledge. Your remaining people will live as vassals under our control." "And if we refuse?" Kyung Ho asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then Earth burns," Thexvar said simply. "Every city, every town, every human life will be erased from existence. We have done this before. The ruins of the Kethrin homeworld still glow with radiation from our plasma bombardment. The Zephyrian survivors work in our deepest minds, remembering the price of defiance." Dr. Hae-jin, who had been quietly working at her science station, looked up with wide eyes. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy readings from their ships. Whatever weapons they have, they could destroy our entire fleet." Thexvar's image smiled, showing more of those terrible teeth. "Wise words from your scientist. You have 30 of your Earth days to decide. Submit or join the 47 species that learned too late the price of opposing the Velthari Empire." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in shocked silence. "Get me Earth Command immediately," Kyung Ho ordered. Priority Alpha transmission. The next few hours passed in a blur of emergency communications. President Mi Kyung appeared on screen from the Global Defense Council chambers, her face grave as she listened to Kyung Ho's report. "How many ships do they have?" she asked. "Our sensors show at least 500 in this system alone," Kyung Ho replied. "Each one could probably destroy our entire defense fleet by itself." Captain Dong Wu of Earth Intelligence had been analyzing the alien transmissions. "Ma'am, I've been studying their communication patterns. They mentioned 47 conquered species. If we assume they've been expanding for 2,000 years, they control hundreds of star systems." Dr. Hae-jin added her own disturbing findings. "I've detected traces of organic compounds in space around their ships. Chemical analysis suggests they're from multiple species. I think they're telling the truth about the other civilizations they've destroyed." President Mi Kyung was quiet for a long moment. "What are our options?" "We could try to negotiate," suggested General Tae-hyun from Earth Defense Command. "Maybe reduce their demands, find some middle ground." "There is no middle ground with slavers," said Captain Hyun-soo of the Special Forces. "They want our people as slaves and our world as a prize. You don't negotiate with that kind of evil. Engineer So Young spoke up from the technical division. Our ship sensors show their technology is advanced but not impossible to understand. If we could study their ships, maybe we could find weaknesses. With what time? Dr. Wu Jin from Research Division asked. 30 days isn't enough to develop weapons that could fight an empire that's been expanding for 2 millennia. President Mi Kyung listened to all the voices, all the arguments. Finally, she called for order. The Global Defense Council will vote in 1 hour. All department heads, prepare your recommendations. The hour that followed was the longest in human history. Scientists ran calculations. Military leaders reviewed defense plans. Diplomats tried to find words that could save their world. When the council reconvened, the debate was fierce but short. Some argued for submission, pointing out that even a small percentage of humanity surviving was better than extinction. Others demanded resistance, saying that life as slaves was not life at all. In the end, the vote was closer than anyone wanted to admit. But it was unanimous when it mattered. President Mi Kyung stood before the assembled leaders of humanity. The Global Defense Council rejects the Velthari ultimatum. We will not surrender our people to slavery. We will not hand over our world to conquerors. Earth stands free, whatever the cost. The room erupted in cheers and tears, fear and determination mixing together. Admiral Kyung Ho, still connected from deep space, felt something change inside him as he watched his leaders choose freedom over survival. When the noise died down, he spoke words that would echo through history. They have declared war on Earth, he said, his voice carrying across the void to every human listening. Today, humanity declares the annihilation of their legacy. Thexvar had expected terror. The Velthari always got terror, then submission, then the easy harvest of another world's resources and people. Instead, he got something the Velthari Empire had never faced before, a species that chose to fight rather than kneel, no matter the odds. The 30-day countdown began. Earth prepared for war against an empire that had never lost. Neither side knew that everything was about to change.